Hello and welcome to this episode of Rebecca and Rebecca. We're so excited to have with us today the amazing and fantastic Toni Shiloh. We recently reviewed her book, A Run at Love, which we absolutely loved. And so we had lots of good things to say about that. And we're here today to find out a little bit more about Toni. So this is my partner, Rebecca Yager from Texas. There's Rebecca, and I'm from Indiana here, where we're having a lot of heat. I think it's all over the place, though. So um, we're not alone, but anyway, welcome. And let's see, Rebecca, would you like to read a little bit about Toni for us?
Yes.
Introduce her.
Toni Shiloh is a wife, mom, and Christian fiction author. We know that. Once she understood the powerful saving grace of the love of Christ, she was moved to honor her Savior. She writes soulfully romantic novels to bring him glory and to learn more about his goodness. Before pursuing her dream as a writer, Toni served in the United States Air Force. It was there she met her husband. After countless moves, they ended up in Virginia, where they are raising their two boys. When she's not typing in imagination land, Toni enjoys reading, playing video games, watching K-dramas, and spending time with her family. Toni, welcome. We are glad you're here.
Thank you so much, guys, for having me here.
We appreciate your time. Is it hot in Virginia right now, too?
Oh, yeah, we're in the 90s, which feels like in the hundreds. So
Yep.
the inside is my friend.
Ours too. Well, as a former Texas girl, you can understand the heat and humidity that we're experiencing right now as well.
Definitely.
And that, well, as a child, did you know you wanted to be a writer, or did you have other aspirations growing up?
I definitely had other aspirations. I was one of those people who couldn't make up my mind. Um, I wanted to be, a cop, a lawyer, a teacher, a librarian, like all the things. Um, and I think part of that was because I read a lot.
Mm.
And I didn't realize back then that like I was always imagining something else or wondering what it was like to step in someone else's shoes. So it wasn't until after I left the military and decided to go back and get my college degree that the writing bug struck me and I was like, oh, this is definitely me. Like, how did I not figure this out sooner?
Well, the Air Force keeps you pretty busy.
Yeah, that's true.
Up until then. Rebecca, you
So
look like you had a question. Yeah.
yeah, I do. I was going to say, so you decided you wanted to write, and then I'm interested to know a little bit more about your process and how it developed from the time you started to what you're doing now.
Yeah, so I I think like anyone, I had a bunch of stories started, but I didn't finish anything. And so I was like, if I'm really going to be a writer, if I really am going to do this, like I have to commit, I have to make a goal, whatever. So I decided I would start small and do a novella, because I felt like it was an attainable goal instead of a full length. And then I just did it every time my kid was napping, I wrote. And I think it was after like 8 or 9 months, I had a finished product. I submitted it, got rejections, and then was like, now what? So I went ahead and I indie published it. And then I think fear got me, and I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. What did I think? So then I tried, I got representation with the small press, and I did traditional. But all the while, I kept writing. I, joined ACFW. I was going to conferences, and I was like, okay, I like both aspects of indie and traditional, so I've been hybrid ever since.
Okay. And are you a plotter or a pantser? That's the big question. We always want to know how
I love this.
writers create.
I love this question because it's so amazing to hear other people's answers, especially when you read their book and you're like, well, how did you do it that way? Like, if that's your style. I am totally a pantser. Plotting gives me the highs. If I know the end of the story, I don't want to write the story. Like, there's no fun in that for me. So the only thing I guess would plot you would say is I figure out my characters. I figure out their backstories, um, who they are. and where they live and how all of those things impact them. And then I let them tell a story.
That's great. Well, you did a fantastic job with A Run at Love. I enjoyed the horse aspect, of course. Um,
Of
and
course.
so, yeah,
I
all the
tease her a
animals,
lot for her love of horses. So.
you know. Um, I actually thought you did a really good job with the the horse part of it, because that's a really hard thing for writers that aren't really familiar with the animals, to write those realistically. And horse racing is a whole nother animal, and so it's kind of like you've got the horse, but you've also got the racing part, and that's a completely different set of really of knowledge, and it's really kind of a hidden world. I was part of it for a while. I was a jockey, so I was kind of in the inside of that. So I thought you did a really good job of translating some of that to just the layperson's terms. You did and it turned out really well. So I wanted to applaud you for that, because that's not an easy thing to do. So,
I
and
really,
plus, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say I really appreciate that coming from someone who does love horses, because I think it was one of my biggest fear. I knew nothing, like absolutely nothing, and I was like, oh, I'm not gonna get this right. Someone's gonna figure it out that I have never even. I mean, when I was a kid, I'm sure I've been put on a horse, like all kids have, but like that doesn't count. But outside of that, I was like, someone's gonna figure out I know nothing. They're gonna like email me and be like, what did you do? Why didn't you do research? So I panicked a lot. But I did do research. So
Especially you
I
had
knew
to do a ton of research
I knew she did research,
I
because
mean,
yeah, I knew she did that. Because we talked a few times with email, so I was like, I tried to help get her a few sources that would help. So I knew that that was something that you did, and like I said, you did a great job. But the romance part of it it carried the story. Regardless, if you could have messed everything up, I think, and it would have still been a good story.
it did. Well, we liked Tuck and Piper because you got them together fairly quick for a romance. This wasn't a slow burn, as we say. They got,
Yeah.
they realized pretty quick, which I'm glad you kind of didn't drag that out as childhood friends and stuff. I really liked their foundation, but all the conflict that you created that was around them. Um, and just how they had to work through that, which affected their relationship. I think we really liked that. It was almost a little bit different spin on a romance instead of the slow burn.
yeah, they actually surprised me for announcing their feelings so early. I was like, wait, we're not that very far in. And I was like, how is this gonna work? Because like you said, most romances they slow burn us till the end and we're like, come on already, like just be together. Um, but then once it happened, I was like, well, then what are you guys gonna go through? If you're together now, like something's still gonna have to happen to cause drama. So
Mm-hmm. And boy, did it. I liked though Piper wrestling with her feelings about being adopted. And she's a Black woman in a white world. I mean, let's be straight about this.
right.
And I thought it was interesting to me, who obviously would know nothing about that, how you just really, I don't know. I liked how she loved her parents, and of course conflict there, but always curious about her roots and how she navigated growing up in that world. Um, I like that you're not hiding any of this either. Mm.
Yeah, I feel like everyone has thoughts, right? Like we all wonder what someone's going through. And I feel like fiction is the perfect medium to lay it all out, right? Let's
Mhm.
say what everyone's been thinking and let's discuss it and then, filter it through the lens of God. And I wanted Piper obviously to come to her own conclusions, but I hope that in her journey, the reader will be able to experience their own conclusions as well regarding the subject.
Mhm. To be able
Well,
to.
you certainly did a great job dealing with it. I thought you were very, um, you portrayed both sides of the dilemma. quite well. And as an adopted person, not in quite the same situation, obviously, but still that, feeling of, you love your parents and you don't want to disrespect them, but where did I actually get, my hair color? Where did I get my eye color? Where did I get my personality? Did it come from nurture? Did it come from, my genes? So I really connected with that story as far as the adopted part.
Mhm.
And I thought you handled it very well. It was well done.
Thank you.
Yeah. Um, I tell you what, any good story, and Rebecca and I are fans of side characters and the people that surround your main characters. And boy, did Tuck have a good group of friends. The texting back and forth to me was just like, oh yeah. They're so it was just so real. And it's like, okay, I want to go hang out with this group of people. Yeah.
Definitely. The texting is probably my favorite part in this series. And I had to be told, a couple of times to like, let's pull it back a little bit. Don't go too happy with the text. And I'm like, but it's so fun.
Well, and it's so today too. It's so,
Right.
Yeah.
a lot of people just communicate via text. I do that with my best friend. She and I both hate talking on the phone. Would rather just text.
Exactly. I do the same thing. I know so many people where the first thing I do is I reach for a text. I don't call or anything. It's so funny because one of my kids the other day was texting his friend, and his friend responded by calling, and he was like, what happened?"
What do I do?
Exactly.
How do we talk? And I'm guessing I'm going to go off a little bit, but Lamont and
Nevaeh.
Nevaeh. Thank you. I knew I was going to say it wrong. Nevaeh. That is obviously the first book. That were they the main of your first book in this series and stuff. I need to go back and read it because I was already fascinated with them and their supportive tech.
Yeah, so they started the series in the book called The Love Script. And as you get a glimpse, like Nevaeh is a hairstylist, Lamont's a movie star, and their story was one of a fake dating and I would say, oops, paparazzi photo. So they were a lot of fun to write as well.
Well, I like that you carried them through. And again, so
Mhm.
I read this as a standalone right now, Run It Love, but I am curious now to go back and read the Love Script too. So I like that the book stands alone on its own, but yet, oh, there's other characters. I'm going to go learn more about them. Now, is there a third book in this series? Is there?
Yeah. So the third book is Chris's story. It's called The Nature of Love. I just had a cover reveal last week, and it will be coming out in February. Um, and it might be my favorite, which um, I know some of the readers are amazed when I say that, but I think each time you write the story, you're like, I love these characters to death. And then you don't want to leave them, but when you move on to next, you're like, oh, I love these characters to death. And it just kind of cycles. So they're my current, I love those characters to death.
Well, is it going to be hard to say goodbye to them when the series ends?
Yes, definitely. There's just something about this group that feels so real.
Mhm.
Um, and I connected with that. I didn't like I always connect with my characters, but I guess in this time in my life, I really needed like the truths they discovered on their own journey. So saying goodbye to them will probably make me shed a tear or two.
Hmm. Well, I bet, but I love, to me, and as a Christian, it's just the importance of fellowship too. And God brings people into our lives. Sometimes we feel like we got to go it alone and things like that, but God will bring this group of friends in to, you know, advise us or to help us or just be there. And
Yeah,
that's what this group is, I think. They're just, growing together, praying for each other, really there, having each other's back.
exactly. And I like that they're all from different backgrounds because I think sometimes we feel like you have to have friends and fellowship with people who are just like you.
Mhm.
But you don't really grow that way. You end up being static because, there's no challenge if you guys are just alike. But the challenge comes in, learning other people's differences, learning how to care for them in the way that they need and not, your gut reaction to just care for them the way you do things.
No, I love that. I really love that.
So what's coming up next after this series then?
So I recently signed a 2-book contract with Bethany House to bring sports romance.
Hmm.
So the first book will be a hockey romance, which I'm really, really, really excited about. I'm in a research stage. Um, am not as bad as I was with horses. I do watch hockey. So I know a little bit. But like the actual skating, I know nothing. I've never ice skated before. I don't even roller skate. So those are the things that I'll be researching so that I can bring authenticity to it. Um, Maybe if I'm lucky, I'll be able to talk to actual hockey players. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm still debating on where to set it. I've asked, some opinions, Minneapolis versus Washington, D.C. But I still don't know, like in my heart, which one's the right one.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, you'll
Well, both
find.
those cities offer a lot. I mean,
Yeah,
you've got a lot of options there depending upon, it'll be a different story though, depending on where you set it. So I guess
I
that's
know.
that's the dilemma, right? Which
Right.
one do I want to go with? So, okay. Sounds great.
are
That's
you going to get
exciting.
on ice skates? Are you going to try it?
I actually thought about it. Because there's that ice house near us that does, public skating. But they say that if you're going to do the public skating, you should already know how to skate. So I would have to take a class if I want to learn. And then my husband, because I was, brainstorming with him, my husband's like, you really don't have good luck with sports. He's like, you might want to just like watch some YouTube videos and prevent injury. So
Oh, that's funny. Well, I tell you, as someone I loved roller skating, ice skating, could not do. Just a totally different. I don't have the ankles, I guess, to hold me up.
yeah,
That's the trick is yeah, I grew up ice skating because we used to ice skate on our ditches here. I mean, and then my dad actually made me a little ice rink in our backyard in the winter one time. So I love to ice skate. I'm not like a trick ice skater. I just, do basic stuff, but I enjoy it. But the ankles is the thing. Like if you don't have, and that's the problem with the public ice skates is a lot of times they're so broken down that they don't support you very well. And then you have trouble skating because they're not stiff enough. And you need to really tighten the ankles super duper tight. We last school year we had this contest for Christmas, and my class won an ice skating trip. So my whole class and I went ice skating in February, and it was at a public rink. It's an outdoor one, but it was covered, and it was a really nice day. It was like a good temperature, and we all went. And that was my problem. There was like getting the skates to tighten up enough at the ankles that I could actually skate because they were, public skates. So,
Maybe that's
but
the
it was
main issue. All
yeah,
right, Tony, I have one question. Do you have,
sure.
after you finish a book or even research, because do you have a special reward you give yourself? Are you a chocolate person or dinner out or, hubby's got to do something for you?
Cheesecake. I like to celebrate with a slice of cheesecake.
Oh, cheesecake.
mm,
Yum.
that sounds
I like that one. I think that's the first
yeah,
cheesecake answer we've had.
I agree. I like that one. That's a
Yeah.
good one. Mhm.
Ooh, I like that.
Yeah.
So, all right. So you said the Nature of Love comes out in February, right?
Yes,
So look for that. But meanwhile, the first two books are out, or Run It Love and the Love Script are out now in this particular series.
right.
Plus your previous books, In Search of a Prince and that kind of.
Yes. Lots of good stuff to if you get on the Toni Shiloh bandwagon, which is easy to do because her stories are really good. There's lots of things out there to pick up and read while you're waiting for the next one. So
That's right. Tony, give us your website address, how people can look for those books and stay in touch.
Sure, it's simple. It's ToniShiloh.com. And you can subscribe to my newsletter on there, which I always regularly send out updates to my writing, what's coming next, any pre-orders, all of that fun stuff.
That's fabulous. And I love it. ToniShiloh.com. Everyone can remember that. So Let's check her out. Toni, thank you for your time and thank you for this fun book, A Run at Love. And we'll look for the rest of the series, or the third book in the series, in February. And we certainly appreciate your time. So people check her out at tonishiloh.com and all over social media too, right?
Thanks
Thank
for
you.
having me.
All right, take care.